The MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our College Basketball Survivor Contest. First place went up to $75,000. Enter today at splashsports.com/SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the MLB Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Friday afternoon, March 14th, roughly 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm roast episode Scott Reichel, joined by, who the hell is that guy? Oh, that's Adam Rosenberg. How's it going? Brand new co-host of the MLB Gambling Podcast. And, of course, my friend. Besides that, the point is we are going to be breaking down the first of the, I'd say, multiple award episodes over the next few weeks as we are doing the MVP episode. Now, I am aware we were in the middle of division previews. However, Adam and I are degenerates headed to Vegas, so the point is we wanted to get this out of the way, so we didn't have to record hungover later on next week. Adam, how's it going with you? Long time no speak.
Long time no speak. We never see each other. We never talk about anything. So it's good to have finally worked my way from frequent guest into a co-host as we talk about my favorite sport, the slowest one, the one where the defense controls the pace, MLB.
Yeah, well, I was going to say slowest sport, you have an argument with golf, but close enough.
Yeah,
point is, fair. Yeah, either way, point it should be fun. We're going to do the awards. If you're waiting for other awards like Manager of the Year, Cy Young stuff, that'll be most likely next week or a week or two from now. But the point is, since we do have a couple of games internationally speaking next week, we wanted to get the MVP out of the way early. So Anyway, Adam, I'm going to ask you in general. First of all, scale from 1 to 10, how excited are you for the upcoming MLB season?
Based on how my accounts have looked up until yesterday, we had a really good college basketball day yesterday.
Basically, if you're not aware, by the way, if you're out of the loop, we're basically betting partners. So that's basically
like we basically share a bank account. As I send my wife an email about money. Yeah, it's I'm very excited, mostly because I think that the NBA is in this weird space before the playoffs, where most teams don't care. So it's a lot of blowouts and it's whatever. But MLB is coming. Today's the spring breakout games too, which is all the young players. So hint, hint. Today is a really good day to make some Rookie of the Year futures before these guys have 9 home run days. But yeah, so I'm excited. It's my favorite sport. It's my best sport. Some people call me the doctor of dong, and dong being home runs, not male genitalia. So
could be all the above. Who knows?
Could be all the above. So yeah, let's get to it, man.
Yeah, before we officially start with the MVPs, I do want to ask you something, because I'm sure a lot of people might make this either mistake or this actual approach, and I want to know your specific thoughts on it. How much stock do you put into spring training performances?
I like people to be more for pitchers than I do for batters,
because I'm sure a lot of people see batters that are going crazy in spring and they're like, well, I got to bet on this person. I just want to make sure you don't believe in that.
Remember Trey Turner in the World Baseball Classic 2 years ago? Like he had like the most epic run and he came out of the gate and I don't think he got a hit for like the first 6 weeks. People had to stand up and clap so that he wouldn't stop crying.
Yeah, it worked, to be fair, the clapping. I thought it was dumb at the time, but it worked temporarily.
It seemed to work. I batters, it's about reps. Pitchers is where you should get worried, because if a pitcher is getting shelled in their innings or their velocity's down, like there's different markers that you see, and pitching is an easy one because, like, look, man, so I don't think things are good in Birdland. And by Birdland, I mean the Orioles in Baltimore. Grayson Rodriguez in his first start was sub 90, which means that he's throwing with pain. So
yeah, he also is getting some injections, which is not a good sign.
Early. Everyone, surprise, surprise. Everybody in baseball gets an injection at some point this season. Getting it early, you can't get it multiple times. Getting it early is not good. So we'll see how these things work out.
Yeah, definitely true. Point, though, that I wanted to mention is that I'm sure a lot of people have noticed some hot hitters in spring training, and they might feel like there's some value in the markets. Maybe, maybe not. But the point is I wouldn't put too much stock in the hitters as you put more stock when it comes to the pitchers in spring training. Now, before we get into the actual breakdown of the AL MVP award first, I want to remind you once again that we do have a great March Madness Survivor contest. And a reminder, you can't compete against SGPN. This March in our $75K winner-take-all college basketball Survivor contest. March has never been this exciting. Enter at splashsports.com/SGPN. That's splashsports.com/SGPN. Anyway, starting off with the AL MVP award. So going through the actual odds here, of course, Aaron Judge is the favorite. By the way, I'm using BetMGM for these odds. I know Adam has DraftKings up. Point to shop around. You can find a bunch of different numbers available depending on what book you actually use. Judge is at plus 250. You have Witt at 350. You have Gunnar Henderson at 650. You have Seager at 10-1. We'll probably talk about Seager in a bit. You have Guerrero, Jr., who's 12-1. Jordan's at 13. You have J-Ram at 16. You have J-Rod and Julio Rodriguez at 18-1. You have Trout. Shout out to Trout, who's going to try to survive a full season at plus 2,000. You have Devers at plus 3,000, despite not wanting to change positions. You have Duran at 4,000. You have Green at about 80. Or, no, sorry, that's about 50. Sorry. You have Rushman at 50. You have Royce Lewis at 50. You have Wyatt Langford at 50. You have Rooker at about 66. To jump around a little bit, you have outfielder Altuve now at 66 as well. You have Santander, new team, 66-1. Bregman, who's now on the Red Sox, 66-1 as well. If you want to jump around for some longer shots, I'm going by key names. I'm skipping over some names. You have Adolis at 80. You have Bellinger at 80 with the Yankees. You have Skubal as the main pitcher guy at 100-1. Besides that, you have Buxton if you want to dare on him to be healthy for once in his life. That's 100-1 as well. A lot of names to mention. I'm sure we'll get back and we'll backtrack on some of them, but the point is you have a lot of options. So, Adam, I'm going to ask you first, based on the actual odds of the favorites with Judge, with Witt, with any of these guys, what's the lowest odds you'd actually consider betting for an MVP award or for any award in general?
Probably the lowest I would probably go is like 12-1.
Okay.
And again, you really should look at these things within tiers. There's also things are correlated. So for example, Aaron Judge is like plus 310, whatever, to be MVP. I am sure that I don't know what his odds are to lead the league in home runs, but maybe that's different. Like play around with what, I wouldn't, first of all, take Judge. I wouldn't take the shortest odds, period.
Yeah.
But like a better example, like Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt is plus 450 to win MVP. I'm pretty sure that he is better odds than that to be the league leader in hits. And he was the league leader in hits last year. Mm-hmm. These things are correlated. He leads the league in hits. He's going to probably be MVP. So I would look at a lot of that stuff. It's really interesting to me that Mike Trout has such a short number because we have Mike Trout is 16-1 to be MVP, but he only is listed for having 23. His home run line is only 22.
I said plus 2,000. It's even higher. It's some spots, but yeah, it's crazy. It's all reputation based.
That's hilarious because you're basically saying that he is a pretty solid under 20-1 is like within the conversation, but you are pricing his home runs as if he has been dead for the last 4 years, which to an extent, yes.
Yeah.
But you're giving him MVP odds that says, oh, no, man, he's back. He's in it. So one of those things is not true and not right. By the way, bet Mike Trout over home runs, but yeah, so that's kind of like how things have kind of stood on that top tier. There's nobody who's super interesting to me in the 12-1. In that middle section, though, that's where it gets a little dicey. What do you want to do? Do you want to actually start even back from the further back end, or do you want to
see? I was going to start from the further back end, but then I realized there are so many names and people are going to belong in different tiers depending on what book you use. That's kind of why I started with the favorites, because I figured that was what people wanted to talk with. Because I know everyone's immediately going, well, Judge won it last year. He'll hit 50-something home runs. We'll see. I have no interest in Judge.
Judge doesn't have the same lineup protection that he had last year, so I think it's going to be very different.
Not to mention the fact that you're assuming health in favor of Judge, which be a question.
You can't cap for health, but look how he did in that 23 Yankees team had one of the worst lineups I've ever seen. I don't think this is going to be that bad. And that team still won 82 games.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I don't think that Judge is going to have a Renaissance Stanton behind him, nor will he have, he obviously doesn't have Soto.
Yeah.
With
relying on Goldschmidt basically for protection. At that point.
Which is fine, but it's not the same.
Correct. I feel like Judge is going to get intentionally walked half the time.
He's going to get intentionally walked a lot.
I'd rather bet him to lead the league in walks if that was a market that I could actually find. But I'm assuming to be favored in that market too.
Yeah.
Judge, I'm not interested in. I feel like the Soto protection was just massive, and he had such a great year last year. We'll mention maybe some favorites with the National League, as there's one guy, of course, in Ohtani that everyone wants to bet blindly. I mean, Witt, I agree with you. if he's going to end up winning MVP, he probably needs to lead the league in hits. And why would you not?
Which he did, which he has done.
Correct, but you can just bet him for hits at a better price than getting the MVP at like 350 or like 4-1. So that's why it's kind of weird. I want to ask you though about, it might be time to open it up a bit more, going into a different tier, because this line keeps dropping, and we had a bit of a disagreement when we talked about MVP odds by ourselves, in secrecy about a week and a half ago. Corey Seager. I know you were very bullish on Corey Seager. I'm a little bit lower on him, mostly because of the durability concerns that I've had with him over the years. I want you to just make your case for Corey Seager. I know that the price has dropped, so there was a much better number available a couple weeks ago. But for the sake of Corey Seager, I just want to hear what your actual case is that he has some value to win MVP.
So Corey Seager is an elite baseball player. Corey Seager had 30 home runs last year on a very bad Rangers team with no lineup protection, and only did it in 123 games. To your point about the injuries, I think, he has not been able to he was able to stay healthy for that 2020 COVID year and consequently won MVP. Yep. So that was also a 60 game season. I can't cap whether or not he's going to be healthy or not. I'm very bullish on this Rangers team overall. I think that, a fun bet on that Rangers team. The thing is I try to look at like who's going to be a team that I like their offense. I like how things are going to go and is going to get the credit for what's going to happen there. I really like Wyatt Langford, but Wyatt Langford is still an unknown quantity. So like Wyatt Langford is only worthwhile as an MVP bet at like 50-1 or greater. Corey Seager is someone who we do know. We know that he is part of this list that we use of guys who've played at least 120 games, had at least 20 home runs, and had a WRC plus of 120 or higher. There's only 35 guys on that list. Corey Seager is right there, and he had 30 home runs. And just if you look through Baseball Savant at where he is on all his swing metrics, they're elite. It's pretty hard to not say that he is a good player if he is playing. So I think that this Rangers lineup, with the addition of Jock, with the addition of Jake Berger, has not a lot of places that you can pitch around. I think he's going to get a lot more protection in that lineup because of it. And for that reason, and my just overall ceiling I see on that team, especially offensively, probably going to come from somebody with some of that talent. And I believe that's going to be him.
Yeah, well, also to point out, I think Adolis could not play worse if he tried compared to last year, because Adolis was atrocious. But yeah, Seager, the issue that I have, once again, I'll just mention the actual numbers in terms of durability. He has played less than 124 games in 3 of the last 4 seasons. Technically 4 of the last 5, but that involves the COVID season, so I'm skipping it. But I get what you're saying. The issue is, do I want to take 10-1? I know that it was a much better price a couple weeks ago, but at this point, 10-1 for a guy that basically walks into 30, 40 games missed every season, I feel like is a pass for me. But I feel like if you were talking about Seager like 20-1, I'd consider it. But like at 10-1, 12-1, at that point, that feels a bit cheap to me. Moving down the line, though, I know that we were interested in another player or team that we might be a little bit higher on than some. Not that they're going to be like serious contenders, but I know Toronto is a team that we thought might be a bit undervalued. You want to make the case for Vlad?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's pretty easy for me to make the case for Vlad.
He's really good at baseball.
Really good at baseball, and is probably not going to be a Toronto Blue Jay next year. So, like, it's a guy who's looking for a $500 million contract, was 3rd in hits last year. Also, by the way, he had a terrible first 2 months last year. Talk about getting an injection and things kicking off. He did that with guys like, first of all, he did that in the same lineup as Alejandro Kirk. Like, come on. Everything that he was able to do.
You gotta watch out though. Kirk has a bit of a cult following.
Vlad part of the same group, but he had 159 games. He had 199 hits, 30 dingers, batted .323. I mean, this is a line of an MVP. So I think that there is a lot of value for him on that. We had looked at him to be home run leader, and let me see if I can find that right now. Home run leader for him was what? Like something around, I think it was like 30-1 or something like that.
I was going to say it was in like mid-20s, I think.
It was the mid-20s. But we effectively were like, look, if he wins home run leader, he's definitely winning MVP. It's kind of one of those awards that they're sort of like dying to give to him if he makes the case for it. I think he's going to have like a little bit better protection with Santander batting right behind him. Bo Bichette, his dad has decided that he's allowed to play baseball again this year, so he'll be playing and in front of him. And so that'll mean probably more RBI opportunities. So yeah, I like in terms of my AL guys, I do like Vlad a lot. I'm seeing 17-1. I'm seeing 17-1 which is a solid price, because another thing with some of these guys that are below 20-1, they're not going to get the prices are probably not going to get better for these types of guys because they're like elite tier 1 guys. So if his price suddenly becomes 50-1, it's probably over. And it's probably that he missed a month or that he's out for this. It is very hard to come back and be able to do that. So give me Vlad, though. Vlad is an official MVP play at 17-1.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bichette before. He missed about half the season on the dot. We know that he is usually towards the top of the American League in hits, so it should give him, once again, more opportunities for RBIs for Vlad. The thing about Vlad that I do appreciate is the fact that he can potentially have a monster season in a couple ways. He can have 40 home runs, or he can bat 330. Like, there are a couple ways that he can have a monster season where you feel like for Judge, if he's going to win MVP, it's going to be 45-plus home runs and like 120-plus RBIs. I feel like you can look at some guys who can have monster years in different ways, and I do appreciate that from Vlad. We both think Toronto's going to be, I'd say, feisty in that division. I'm not going to say that they're going to be very, very good. I heard through the grapevine, a.k.a. Mal, that you did talk to him about the Blue Jays before, and you do think that the Blue Jays can be a bit underrated entering the season. But Vlad, I can agree with you on. I think that definitely I've been lower on him in years past because we were waiting for the explosion, and it finally happened. And now we're hoping that he can keep it rolling into this upcoming year as well. Now, looking at some of the other options.
Wait, one more point on Vlad with this thing, and this is to your point about him both ways. So look, the guy is 10-1 to lead the league in hits, and he's 35-1 to league in home runs. You and I had this discussion. We both liked him for those categories. And the reason why we like him for MVP is because if you are considering a guy that could conceivably lead in 2 different categories, that guy could probably be MVP.
Besides even leading, just top 5 in both categories.
Yeah, but I mean, but the point that I'm making is that if you're battling over, could he be better at a hits leader or home run leader, just bet him an MVP. It's a shorter number. Yes, it's a middle number of all of them. Still a good number, but if you think that he has that kind of ceiling, then he has an MVP ceiling.
Yeah, and you get everything involving his hitting, and you don't have to actually pick spots on what you want him to do. You just want him to rake, and that's all you need. So I want to keep pushing to another guy that I know that we were high on, that I was pretty high on. I think I persuaded you into him. I want to talk to you about J-Ram for Cleveland, because we know Cleveland offensively is usually underwhelming. We'll put it that way. But we know that J-Ram can do a bunch of things. He can be a 40-40 guy if necessary. He's been a very, very good hitter for a very long time. And I feel like he's somehow underrated still. Maybe it's because he plays in Cleveland. I'm not really sure. But I do want to ask you on J-Ram, because I know that I was high on his potential upside, not just for the home runs and the hits, but also for the stolen bases, which can play a factor. Cleveland, we know, can be a bit underwhelming offensively, but we also know that based on Trout, records don't necessarily matter. So even if Cleveland isn't the greatest team in the world, J-Ram can still have a monster season and be in the running. So it's mostly based on upside and what the guy can do. And when it comes to being elite, J-Ram has a lot of qualities that make him a unique and elite hitter. But I wanted to know your thoughts and if you agree with that.
Yeah, I do. I'm sorting it right now. That same list that I was talking about, where the guys with 20 home runs and 100 WRC plus of 120 or more, tops in the AL and steals. Steals is a vital category to being an MVP now. I mean, if you even look, Aaron Judge had 10.
Yeah. What did Acuna have again? Like 70?
He had 70, and Ohtani had 50. Or 59. J-Ram was 1 home run away from a 40-40 season. He has all the same elite metrics in there. It's a hitter-friendly park. Or it's become a hitter-friendly park. Hits obviously on both sides. J-Ram's a great bet. And I don't know if that team will be good. I don't know if they'll be bad. I don't want to take them either way. Well, I want to take them
in that division. You assume they're in the hunt with like a month.
They're always going to be in the hunt. I mean, Detroit had a 2% chance of making the playoffs, and then they got there in that division. Throw out another future. I mean, I do like Cleveland under 14.5 wins in April, but that's because they opened the season with 3 straight road trips, which I think is just difficult. But for MVP, Jose Ramirez is probably my second favorite pick in the AL. Just based on the steal ceiling and the fact that this is a guy that he had 173 hits last year. So he's knocking on the door of 200 hits. Like, these are all MVP types of stats.
Yeah. And also point out, he has been in the running before. I believe who did he lose to? Abreu in that shortened season?
Probably. Oh yeah, I forgot. I always forget about like what that season looked like.
Yeah, because now Jose Abreu is basically out of the league. But the point is that Ramirez has been in the running before, but he's never gotten it. So there is a potential, I don't say narrative push, but if he's in the running again, there is a chance that they'd give it to him because he might have deserved one already in the past. Now, I do want to open it up. I don't want to spend too much time in the AL because we do have another, of course, a league to talk about for the National League. I'm going to open this up to you for some long shots, just some guys that maybe are not in the, well, say 30-1 range or lower, guys higher than that. I know you mentioned Wyatt Langford at like 50 or so. I know you can find better prices. Do you want to pull the trigger on him or you want to focus on other guys?
I think, first of all, I think Wyatt Langford's going to have a pretty volatile market. So, like, if you don't catch him right away, I think that when he has his first skid, he'll go. Wyatt Langford was consensus preseason last year, rookie of the year. He closed at plus 125, got hurt right away, went to 100-1, and then was the third best hitter from July onward. Didn't win rookie of the year, but was in the top 5 in voting. So you don't know what your ceiling is. I don't think you need to pull the trigger on the 40-1. I think that could get bigger. I think you wait a little bit. I'm looking at this list though. Riley Green is really interesting on the Tigers. And Riley Green is interesting because he's another one of those guys who has hit a bunch of home runs. He had 24 in 137 games last year. He had the third highest BABIP among guys who were in a group that had 15 plus home runs and what is it? And this basically, yeah, they had less than 140 games and 20 or more home runs. And he had the highest BABIP, which means he was pretty unlucky. So he could have done more. He's the 89th percentile in slugging percentage. He's got 92nd percentile in max EV, and he doesn't chase. What does he do? He strikes out on whiffs. If the ball is in there, he might swing and miss it, but he's not going to swing outside the zone. So your approach is there. Also, people are just starting to get on this Tigers team, starting to put things together and do things in the right way. But Riley Green is a fun mid shot for MVP, in my opinion. As I'm looking back here, like at the end, like Lawrence Butler is on here. I don't think the A's aren't going to get an award or get rewarded for ditching Oakland.
If they were going to get anything, honestly, I'd rather take Rooker over Butler personally, but I'm not going with anybody on Oakland.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to get rewarded.
I'm not going for anybody on the Athletics anymore. It's going to take some getting used to not saying Oakland anymore. But
yeah, I mean, like they just kind of, that's such a sour taste story.
It's one issue.
Maybe Cal Raleigh.
I was going to say, it's one issue for the American League, though, is I'm going through the names at the bottom, and there were really no series of long shots I was tempted by. You mentioned Raleigh for upside. The issue is what's he going to bat? 220, 230?
He's also just like, I mean, it works for him because he's not in a hitter's park is the other problem. Neither is Riley Green, which is going to put a ceiling on that. Actually, the problem also Riley Green has is that Kansas City is not a hitter's park either. And he has to go there 13 times. So
your argument though is Detroit, after having a nice story last year, if they can build on that and be relevant, they would have some type of push for for That's kind of the point you're making. But
yeah, that's the point I'm making. I think I didn't see Duran is a little bit interesting in that same pricing range. More so than Devers, more so than Bregman because of the triples ability, because he's kind of got to have a Jimmy Rollins type of year. But yeah, none of those other guys. I can't believe Mike Trout is 16-1 right here for MVP. That's just a terrible number.
I'm looking at names in the back, and it's just like I don't see anybody here.
I don't even know who Miles Straw is.
He's the guy who never hits any home runs. Who's been in the league for a while.
Andy Ibanez is on this list.
There are a lot of names on the list. He's standing at 150-1. I'm not sure when he's going to play. I feel like once again, if you want the really, really dumb pick, which is a donation based solely on upside, you got Buxton at 100-1, hoping that he actually survives for like 7 months in a row. But the point is, I don't see any really long shots here. But I feel like we went through the main guys. We're focusing more on like the 20-1 range, somewhere around there. But do you want to make one last pitch for anybody that's like a serious long shot, or are they all just waste of time? Because I feel like it's mostly
waste of time. I think monitor. We'll be doing this show all the time. We'll give out some things that are happening and some of those numbers, but I think the only AL preseason numbers that you want that are not going to get that aren't going to get longer until it's too late are borderline Seager.
Yeah.
For sure Vlad, for sure Jose.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anyway, point is, before we get into the actual National League MVP award discussion, want to remind you once again, they're brought to you by EdgeBoost, because SGPN's partnered up with EdgeBoost, premier Visa debit card for bettors. EdgeBoost card has the ability to avoid being hassled at the sportsbook, DFS sites, which is a racetrack casino, because your card will never get denied. Plus, you can earn a bunch of cash rewards, $70 per month of cash rewards by using the card. And remind your money safe as the card's FCC insured and best part of credit checks, and it's completely free. Sign up for EdgeBoost and enter our free 2K bracket contest at sportsgam.com/bracket, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/bracket to sign up. We're also brought to you by MyBookie. A reminder that MyBookie is the place to bet in every sport. They have props in every game. They also accept customers a ton of locations. You can also easily deposit and get lightning fast payouts with crypto. Head to MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match with a 1K. That's MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the MLB Gambling Podcast. Finished breaking down the AL MVP award. Now it's time to break down the NL MVP award. Basically, the main question, is it worth betting anybody besides Ohtani? The answer is yes. We're going to talk about it. But I'm sure people want to blindly bet in Ohtani anyway. Starting off with the odds, Ohtani's plus 150. I get it. I'm just disappointed. Soto's at 6-1. Tatis is at about 850. Once again, shop around. You can find Mookie at 10-1. You have Bryce Harper at about 14. Tucker is at 16-1. A reminder that he's on the Cubs now. You have Ellie, who's at about 16-1 as well. You have Lindor at about plus 2,000. Acuna, back off the injury, is about plus 3,000. Freeman, 3,500.
That's a donation, by the way. That's an absolute donation bet. He's not even going to play till May.
Wait, just to make sure, which one are we talking about?
Acuna?
Yeah, okay. Because I was going to say, because Freeman also, you have to wonder about how much he's going to play. So that's why I was wondering. The point is, Freeman, after the World Series MVP, is at 35-1. You have Ketel, who's at 35-1. You have Trio, a shout out to Milwaukee, at 35-1. You have Jackson Merrill at 35-1 as well. You have Corbin Carroll at 40, Trey Turner at 50, Olsen at 50 off a bit of a down year. You have Austin Riley, who got injured at the end of last year. He kind of had a really weird year, but he's plus 5,000 as well. Alonso's at 50, who crawled back to the Mets. You have Skeens at 66-1. You have Machado at 80. A bunch of other names that we could talk about. Vientos at 100-1. Point is, I'm sure we'll get more into it. You have O'Neal Cruz for fun at 125-1. Your boy Kyle Schwarber is at 150-1. We'll start off with the basics here with Ohtani. Of course, Ohtani is the best player in the league by a mile. I know we're not taking him at plus 150, but for the sake of talking points, is there anybody in that short price range? I know you weren't interested for the American League. Is there anybody in the National League for a short price range, we'll say 10-1 or lower, that you might be intrigued by, or is that just a complete pass?
Soto.
Okay.
More so, I can make the case for Soto more than I can make and to an extent Tatis. I can make this case more for Ohtani. Ohtani's going to be pitching too this year. So keep in mind that you're getting one of two things. You're either getting Ohtani fatigue, or like I don't see him getting back to back as a DH.
I personally can because he's the biggest star in baseball, but I get what you're saying. Like there's a lot.
But it just I don't know. And then but Soto arguably should have won it last year for the AL and did not because he didn't have the same home run level. And Tatis, like when he plays, again, this is an injury thing, but when he plays, he is up there with everybody else. So, yeah, those are two that I could make. I mean, Soto's never going to get shorter. I think you could make the case for Soto if everything goes right, and he looks in good form. Again, spring training, not a lot of stock into it, but under 10-1, yeah, I'll take Soto. Right.
I do want to ask you about Ohtani since he is pitching. If he's really good at the plate, like always, but he sucks at pitching. Like he just has an absolutely atrocious year. I think it hurts him, right?
I think it hurts him.
I think it has to. So people always talk about how, it's such a plus that he pitches. You're assuming he pitches well. Like he didn't pitch last year. He could be a bit rusty on the mound.
He had one of the highest hard hit rates when he pitched 2 years ago.
Yeah. But the point is that Ohtani, I can't take at 150. I just can't do that. Not to mention you're hoping he stays healthy too. The point is for Tatis, I think it's appealing. He's had injury issues too, but Tatis, of course, has the upside, the potential explosion season, where if he would hit like 40-something home runs, nobody would really be surprised if he stayed healthy. Like he's that talented. But kind of branching out a bit more to these other guys. There's one longer shot that I know that we both really love. We'll get into in a second. But moving on to the second tier, with Betts at 10-1, Harper at 14-1, Tucker at about 16, Ellie at 18, and we'll throw in Lindor and Acuna at 20. Is there anybody on that tier that you're actually intrigued by? I know the answer is yes, but I'm setting you up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. A lot more interested in this tier. I'm pretty interested in Bryce Harper here. Bryce Harper last year was like 8-1 to start the season. There isn't anything physically wrong with Bryce Harper, despite the rumors.
And he's not bad at first base.
Yeah, he just plays first base now. That's the problem. Yeah. So he, if the Phillies offense does what it's supposed to do, especially he's going to have probably different opportunities now that Kyle Schwarber is going to be moving to the cleanup role. Trey Turner is going to be moving to leadoff. I like Bryce Harper at this 15-1. I haven't pulled the trigger on it because I'm trying to see if I can get that to be just a little bit higher. I've seen it fluctuate between 14-1, 16-1. I like that a lot. And then we talked about this, but Francisco Lindor has MVP ceiling, and we saw it last year. The problem with him is just that he's going to be splitting votes with Soto any way that you cut it. And that kind of puts him off for me because I don't see a world where a guy who signed for $700 million has an MVP type season.
And the Mets are very good, most likely.
What's that?
And the Mets are going to be very good.
And the Mets are really good. I don't see Lindor getting that credit.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I mean, Lindor, people argue, had a serious shot last year. He didn't. It was clearly Ohtani the entire time. But people are trying to make arguments that he was in the running. So you can argue for narrative, maybe Lindor would get some credit, but in reality, no. Plus, when you're comparing actual games, I don't want to roast Lindor because I recognize how good he is defensively. But when it comes to highlights and stuff like that, Soto's game is just so much flashier than Lindor's that I feel like for the sake of highlight culture and stuff like that, everything Soto does is going to be evaluated on such a grand scale because of the contract. So I do agree. I think Soto will get a lot of credit for the Mets doing well, whether Lindor deserves it or not. I do want to ask you about Elly, because we did mention the stolen base importance for J-Ram on the AL side. Elly is pretty interesting because he bats switch, but I think he's a lot better from one side.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
He has been better from the right side, though, than I thought he was going to be. He has kind of developed a little bit more from that area, but I want to ask you about the Reds. I know you were a bit higher on the Reds. They got Francona now to be the manager. Any interest in Elly if he steals like 70 or 80 bases?
I feel like he already did that.
But I'm asking, for the sake of like an MVP award, if the Reds are good, and we know the NL Central can be a bit of a shit show, to be honest. Like the Cubs are favored with like 86.5. Like the whole division's kind of a mess. If the Reds are good and Elly ends up with like 60 stolen bases and let's say 20-something home runs, whatever, and the Reds maybe make a playoff push, do you think he can be in serious contention for the award? Because we're going for upside. And the question is, if Elly leads the league in stolen base and the Reds are actually good, is that enough narrative to push him to a potential MVP?
So I don't think it is, but I'm looking right now at RBI bands. So Elly De La Cruz is plus 650 to have 120 RBIs. I don't think that you can really win MVP unless you with less than, we will call it, you can serve, let's say 110. He's plus 370 there. These are kind of the things, like those are part of an MVP because he's going to be batting third, possibly cleanup. I don't know, but to me, this part would have to happen with that. Like he's going to have to have a 30-30 year. Mm-hmm. And he's going to have 120 RBIs. He's 100-1 to lead the league in RBIs, by the way. Okay. Which I think is a great bet. But they're also, and I don't know if he's going to get the credit for that happening. I think it's going to be Tito because he's going to change the way that Reds team puts itself together. So I'm not really interested in Elly for this reason. I'm
just throwing it out there for upside.
No. I agree. I think there's a better way to back Elly's ceiling. And I think that is Elly, like the bands on maybe bet him to have a 30-30 season, which I think is available in a couple books. I know it was on DK last year.
You can bet him for a 30-50 season if you want. You can steal 50
and honestly, do you think he wins MVP? There's no way he's winning MVP without at least 110 RBIs. That's plus 370. Bet that on its own. And then you can do half on that. You can there's ways around it so that if something happens, but not everything, like the Reds are like plus 240 to make the playoffs. I think you have to bet that. I would rather break up a unit onto a couple different futures bets than put it all into Elly at the 16-17-1.
Yeah, I get that. I was just throwing out some potential upside, guys.
No,
you're assuming Ellie's going to lead the league in stolen bases. That's kind of why I brought it up.
Yeah, which I'm not totally convinced is going to be the case.
Okay. So point is that Ellie, you're not going to be in on, but I had to mention him for upside. Kyle Tucker, I'm not going to back. I just feel like there's a bit too much uncertainty for the Cubs. I'm not going to bother, especially at that price. And he was injured last year, so I do question, how he's going to look in the new ballpark. Do want to ask you though, Acuna? I know we immediately said no to because the Braves are going to wrap him in bubble wrap the entire season.
He's also not He's not stealing any bases.
Now, going into the actual next tier. You have Marte, you have Chiriot, you have Merrill, you have Corbin Carroll, you have Trey Turner, and we'll throw in Olsen for the hell of it, and Riley. Actually, no, we'll also throw in Alonso and Skeens. So out of that entire tier, I know that there's one guy that we absolutely love. I know you were sold in his teammate initially, and then I kind of persuaded you to go elsewhere. But what case you want to make for Corbin Carroll?
I mean, Corbin Carroll's my favorite of the group, and you and I landed on Marte. Marte is in that list, I say again, of guys who weirdly have not played a ton of games, but have a lot of pop and are able to do that. He had 43 doubles 2 years ago.
He's allegedly a switch hitter at this point.
Allegedly a switch hitter, but he's going to probably primarily bat righty. His splits are pretty bad. But Corbin Carroll had such a bad first half of the year last year that he's not even on this list because he was so bad. He still played almost every game, and he had 140 WRC plus after July 1st. That's insane. Corbin Carroll has that makeup of a 30 home run, 100 RBI, 30-40 stolen base season, which is right there in an MVP conversation. I think I'm high on the D-backs. And I think that if the D-back, I can't get past the fact that Marte has not played more than 140 games in 4 of the last 5 years. Corbin Carroll was clearly hurt last year and played every single game. Corbin Carroll is who I like a lot more here than Marte.
I agree. I know that we had a Zoom conversation, I think it was a week ago, and Carroll, I remember having a really bad year. People thought he was playing through, I think it was a groin issue at the time. And then you said before.
He had a shoulder thing.
That's who. Point is that post All-Star break, when you have a WRC plus of 140 plus, and nobody's really talking about you, you're highly underrated, and I think you're highly mispriced. I think Carroll based on upside should be closer to 25 to 1. 20 to 1. I think 40 is way too high, so I do like the value there on Corbin.
By the way, want to talk about price shopping difference? He's 22 to 1 on DK. You see him at 40 to 1. That's a bet for that reason alone.
BetMGM is 40. So if you want to take that, you can. Mentioning anybody else in this tier, I know that you're a Phillies fan. Trey Turner, you're not going to take, as I know you were.
Trey Turner's interesting. I would rather take Trey Turner to lead the league. I'd rather take Trey Turner at a lower number to lead the league in runs or hits. Runs probably.
I would go with runs personally, but
it's like 12 to 1. I would rather do that.
Okay. Are you interested in anybody involving the Braves? I know you're not interested in Acuna. Do you want to make a case for Olsen or Riley or anybody like that?
I'd rather Riley for home run leader. And he's one of those guys that could win home run leader and not win MVP. So that's kind of how I'd look at that.
Okay, I know that we don't think that it's worth it, but I am going to bring it up because he's of course a very, very, I'd say, high talking point guy. Skeens at about 66.
No. Not interested in Skeens. That not yet for this guy. Skeens is going to get Cy Young as long as he's breathing. But I think that I'm not interested in him for MVP. First of all, the Pirates aren't going to be good.
Yeah,
the Pirates have a win total of 70. Like if the Pirates don't win like the division or 80 some games, then that bet's dead. So yeah.
I mean, the main point that I'll mention though, for the sake of Skeens to go against them in this case. Screwball won the Triple Crown last year in the American League, and he wasn't even close to winning MVP. I don't know how good Skeens has to actually be to win it. Does he need an ERA of 1.7? What does he need?
He probably needs Kershaw stuff and that team needs to be decently competitive, where he's kind of brought the whole team up. He's got to have a WAR of 7.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm not interested in Skeens either. Is there anybody that I did not mention in maybe the longer tier that you're interested in? Because I feel like we went through the main options. I'm not a big home run swinger for 100 to 1 on MVP guys, but is there anybody in the National League that I did not mention that you were interested in? I know that Wilson. I know that sorry, just looking at the actual names here. I don't really see much. I mean, I know that you're a big Matt McClain guy, but probably not for MVP at 150 to 1.
Not for MVP.
Is there anybody you're interested in?
I could once again be convinced to put a little bit of money on so here's the thing. I don't think a pitcher on a team that's mid could win it as easily as if O'Neal Cruz goes bonkers on that team and they're still mid. We've seen this before. Like that happens all the time. If O'Neal Cruz has a Mike Trout like season at 130 to 1, it's interesting. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's interesting. So yeah, I mean, the fact that like, I don't even, this list is hilarious. Christian Yelich is like too hurt to play, and he has shorter odds than O'Neal Cruz.
Yep.
Marcell Ozuna, by the way, guys, Marcell Ozuna is not going to win MVP.
Marcell Ozuna from the Braves?
From the Braves.
Yeah, okay.
He is not going to win MVP. He has multiple domestic violence things on him and a DUI. He's not winning MVP. I get that. It's baseball. A lot of these guys are not great guys. He's not going to get MVP. Like,
yeah, I mean, also to point out, we know that the baseball writers have their own agenda.
The baseball writers do not like him.
Yeah, at all. So that I agree with you. I wasn't even going to mention Ozuna. I think it was worth our time, but
he's right there. He's right there at 60 to 1, and I'm like, that's not happening.
Yeah, it's fair. Point is, though, anybody else you want to add, or should we officially just wrap up the?
I think we could wrap them up.
All right. So before we get into our best bets for the actual show, do you want to remind me once again, they're brought to you by Rhythm, because if you want to meet Adam and I in person, we're going to be there. In fact, Adam's basically hosting the thing. Rhythm's having an epic March Madness party, and you're all invited. All Rhythm users are invited to the First Four Watch Party on Wednesday, March 19th at the Awesome Stadium Swim, Circle Las Vegas. Free drinks, keyword free drinks. Plus, you get to hang out with the guys from SGPN, which is also fun, I guess. It gets better. You also can enter a free drawing for a chance to win a $2 future bet for March Madness from Rhythm, giving away one, once again, future to a lucky Rhythm user. It's okay, though. If you cannot make the party in Vegas, you can still be entered into the random drawing. So come by, Rhythm help you with your actual brackets and make some bets while you're here. A free party plus chance to win a $50 future bet when you sign up with Rhythm. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/party for details. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, because if you want to try to make some money, you can also use Underdog Pick'em with a bunch of different sports, NBA, MLB, even tennis if you want to, and you can win it to 100 times your money. When you do sign up for your new account with Underdog, use the promo code MLB SGPN to claim a special and a first-time deposit offer up to $1K bonus cash on Fantasy promo code MLB SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the MLB Gambling Podcast. Finished breaking down the AL and NL MVP award actual markets. Now it's time for the best bet portion. We already went through all these names. We're just going to recycle some of the main guys that we recommend. Adam, you want to do the honors?
Sure. I like Vlad MVP, 17 to 1, best price that I've seen. Jose Ramirez MVP, 22 to 1, best price that I've seen. And then in the NL, Corbin Carroll, 45 to 1 MVP, and go for our guy Bryce Harper at 16 to 1 MVP. Those are 4 of my best bets that I would think for MVP. That gives you 2 in each league to chase and probably forget about until September, when you're like, oh my God, I hope these win.
Yep, definitely true. Point is, for my favorite in particular, it's got to be Corbin. I mean, 45 is
overwhelmingly insane. My favorite.
45 is nuts. You mentioned, I think it was DraftKings that had 22.
Yeah.
Like, if you're getting double the odds on one book compared to another, you can argue that that's just a system play at that point. But after the All-Star break, when he was healthy, WRC plus of 140, Carroll's really, really good. And I feel like it's kind of weird with the Diamondbacks, because people acknowledge that the team is pretty good because they made the World Series a couple years ago, but nobody ever talks about them because they're in the same division as the Dodgers and the Padres. So if you think Arizona is going to be feisty, and you think that Carroll has the upside of being, I mean, even if you want to make an argument for like a 25 or 30 and like 60 guy, you can make an argument for it if you want to. He can have a monster season, and
he can lead the league in steals.
He can. In theory, he can lead the league in hits if you want to talk about like upside as well. So Carroll, I do think, is too talented to be at about 45. I think that 30 to 1 sounds better to me, like in terms of what's fair. So if you want to hand me an extra like 15 to 1, sure, I'll gladly take it and say thank you on my way out. But I agree with your futures. Of course, we did a discussion about this separately a week beforehand, so apologies if some of the lines moved. I know Seager was a guy who moved pretty dramatically over the last couple weeks. What was Seager at, like 18 or 20? And now he's down to
like 18 or 20 to 1, and it's just that. I mean, look, guys, if you like that, just bet the ceiling on the Rangers. Bet them to win the pennant. Bet them
Yeah, I agree. A point, though, is that apologies once again if some of these end up moving, but a reminder, also shop your lines, because you can find a lot of different prices available. But anyway, that's going to officially wrap it up for the MVP discussion. I know we're back later on in the week with some division breakdowns. I know we have not finished all of those. I think we have 2 left on those. And we have some awards that we're going to do next week with Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, and Manager of the Year, etc. But anyway, Adam, anything else you want to add before we wrap up the show? You want to plug anything?
Nope. See you guys in Vegas. See you in Vegas. Come to Vegas. And you don't have to be in Vegas to win the $250 chip that we're giving away too.
Yep, definitely true. I'll be there anyway because I like to party. Until then, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.